Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Scotch, the show of mental, physical health, being a strong woman in this hospitality industry, and so much more. Today's guest is Elyse Blechman of the Macallan. Talk about growing up in the same small town in Texas. What are the odds there? Talk about Speed Rack and its influence for the community of hospitality. We finally sat down. After a few years in the making, Elyse and I caught up during the San Antonio Cocktail Conference this year and just waxed poetic, talked about everything we could possibly think of over a few cups of coffee. And here is the wonderful result. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great chat with Elyse Blechman.
Fairly well. Just recently, this transition has been quite interesting and a bit daunting to me personally as far as like reevaluating what my daily regimen looks like and then, down the line, what's down the pipe and what does 6 months from now look like. And just having a conversation constantly about what's happening in my head and how it affects my physiology. Because more than ever, more than shaking hundreds of cocktails a night, I know now how connected those two things are.
Absolutely.
And how detrimental it can be if you neglect one or the other. So it's incredibly important to me, yes, but there's several things that I try to do for myself, maintain organized and positive, and try not to be incredibly critical of myself. It's a very free job, and I have a lot of, creative leeway. However, a little bit of lack of rubric can sometimes be the downfall for most people that are used to, an organized regimen. So overcoming those things and obviously working out a lot.
Helps just a bit.
It helps just a bit, but I mean the late nights don't really go anywhere. I think as an ambassador, my job is so much more than closing down a bar and drinking with friends at 2 a.m. It's not really where anything happens other than a fun conversation. Nobody's going to get anything out of that, but maybe a hangover in the morning. So restricting myself to maybe once a week, I'll let the lights come up in a bar.
Right.
And getting great sleep. Sleep is so important to me now.
It's a massive thing.
Yeah.
So in terms of expectations, let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
So you transitioned to a more visible role. You, obviously with Speed Rack and certain accolades here in San Antonio, you've built an amazing reputation as a career woman, which is a beautiful thing. Your career keeps expanding, the opportunities. Do you feel any sense or any air of expectations? One, because you're a very powerful woman in this industry with a strong voice, and two, because simply you got a bigger gig now. You feel any expectations or pressure more than usual?
Not so much externally, but the things I apply to myself, absolutely. I think that I kind of had a quiet conversation with myself when I took this role, and I, had to come to truths and, decided to revamp my side of things. And that meant don't be too hard on myself. Yeah. Curb my own expectations. I've had coworkers and mentors, bosses tell me, Elyse, you've got to roll with punches a little bit more. You have to let things unfold as they are, and you can't be in control of them. So that is definitely
Is rigid a word for that? Would you perhaps?
I would say maybe, I don't know that it's rigid. I'm malleable when it comes down to the organic qualities of having events. Things are going to unfold as they do. But there is a definite and massive part of me that expects it to be perfect and go exactly as my mind's eye perceives or would like. So curbing that a little bit, telling myself to chill. What
are some methods or some techniques that Elyse can tell everybody that help?
Oh, so layman. You've heard it from everybody. Breathing.
I haven't
breathing.
Actually. No, I think it's imperative.
It's it's this natural function that occurs all of the time, but we never really control it. It's going to happen, and we need it. But taking deep breaths, and recently working with somebody who specializes in, breaking the compensation patterns in your body from, the ergonomics of your jobs or what have you. Breathing and holding 6 breaths over the course of a minute. So it's 10 seconds to breathe in and to also breathe out. And being completely aware of that process for 1 whole minute a day. And you reset, because it's impossible to be anxious and stimulated and relaxed at the same time. And what you're doing when you're breathing is telling yourself to relax and slow down. And also it just helps me get in tune for a minute and curb the probably inevitable anxiety attack that's on the horizon.
Is that what that shadow is? It's kind of misty shadow,
no, it's not my shadow. That's my anxiety. Yeah, it's
exactly.
just it's manifesting into a visible form. So
I didn't realize that would you say that you wrestle with anxiety? Is it something that's actually quite prominent in your life?
I think it always has been. I think that it's a product of a lot of things. It's a product of loving myself very much and having expectations for my success.
Yeah.
I think it's also a product of studying a field of studies that requires you to put everything you care about out on a line for critique.
Right.
And to anticipate failure in a good way. From that we learn and we strive and we change, and we keep rolling essentially. But I think that anxiety can be a bad thing. And it's always, like we mentioned earlier.
Eustress and distress, right? Those two types.
Absolutely, right? And there's all sorts of ways to skin a cat or leave your lover or deal with your anxiety. And everybody is different. I think that I kind of embrace it. It's going to exist. I think it's necessary for me. It's kind of, and when we talk about it, it's a bad guy, but really it can be a good guy.
Yeah.
Being anxious about things you care about.
Absolutely.
If I don't wake up every day afraid of the thing that I'm pursuing, I probably shouldn't invest in it. And we've talked about that.
Right.
On a private level is, what is our passion activating in our lives, and how do we handle it? So I think I try to look at it as a good thing.
It is. No, I think pressure and self-imposed pressure are two things that encourage us to build more, build better, stronger mentality, also build a stronger physique.
Absolutely.
I always use the bench press analogy. If you don't keep putting on more weight, you're never going to progress. You're never going to grow. Right?
Absolutely.
So you got to keep pushing through. It's hard. And then once you realize you push through, like, holy shit, I can do another rep of this thing, add some weight.
Exactly.
Right? C'est la vie, ultimately.
Yeah.
When you talk about reflection, okay, so the breathing makes a lot of sense to become centered, take yourself out of what is maybe a pre-anxiety phase or era, right? You've had a career. I mean, already, even at the young age of 29, you've had quite a career. Sometimes we're so busy doing. We're both here doing so much during this conference. Do you ever sit down and reflect on how much you've actually achieved?
Absolutely. I think that, tallying our good times and our bad times and looking over what's happening is easy to do. But when we're considering those things, they're usually singular events that kind of denote success or failure right over the year. We can remember something that was completely and overwhelmingly tiring or phenomenal and exciting, or we've loved somebody for a season.
Yeah.
Those things kind of stick out. But as far as my career, it comes in waves where I change as a person. I've applied myself, or I've been each step operating at a different level, on a different plane almost. I've been wearing different hats. So through all of the bar gigs, I was bartending to certain different people, and I was a different Elyse. And so sometimes it required stern but fair, high volume, hi, how are you? Yeah. No, you may not behave like that. And yes, you may have everything that you ever wanted. That's what my job was as a bartender, is overcoming the identity of the place that you work, or absorbing yourself into that. And so changing a little bit, you change as you go, and you change. And no matter what, everyone who bartends is essentially an ambassador. You're an ambassador for your own thoughts, the space that you work, the employer that, has given you a job. So you start practicing wearing those different hats. But yeah, I look back at all of these little chapters of my life based on what I was doing work-wise or love-wise, or, geographically. I've moved as well. And it's overwhelming a little bit, when I stop and actually consider that I gave myself a goal. I worked towards that goal. I achieved that goal. I worked towards another goal. I didn't necessarily get it, but lateral movements are important. And then retracking that, that weird windy path I've gone down. I think about it often. It's kind of startling. It takes me back a bit.
I talked to, obviously, a lot of the people that I have the opportunity of talking to are brand ambassadors, or they represent something. Some people are the brand themselves, right? I think for you, obviously you're behind Macallan and stuff now, but you also are Elyse, right? So you bring this cachet to that role, hence probably one of the reasons that they hired you. But I always wonder, for you and a couple other really strong personalities, where does the job end and you begin?
That's great. So, I mean, if we're talking about visually and the perception of that, it shouldn't maybe ever. And it depends on who you are and how you want to interact with what you are an ambassador for. I am an ambassador for a brand, for the Macallan and the Edrington portfolio. And more importantly, inside of that, I'm an ambassador for my passion.
Right.
And it just so happens that I've been fortunate enough to have a position or be offered and taken a position in a place that allows me to continue learning. So, yes, I am the visual face, or, I should be aligned with this brand and be responsible with educating and advocating education for it.
Social presence, right?
Social presence. And then, I mean, social media is a huge thing, right? So if we're talking about the logistics of being a brand ambassador, I would like for somebody to look at me and align me with the brand, but align me with themselves, because why are we looking at this page? Why are we interested in this? What makes us want to drink more? So perhaps it's the way that it's visually presented, or more importantly, maybe it's the way that somebody talked to you about it for the first time, or piqued your interest in the alchemy that is distillation, or the type of barley that we're using, or the manner in which several of our production methods change and differ, and those are all amazing. Or it's the camaraderie of hospitality. It's that you want to go and have a great experience. The idea that the bottle itself is a celebration, and we should, kinetically be on point all the time. We should be experiencing things in loads. So hopefully, if each person is playing to different things, if you're looking at my social media and that's what excites you, if you want to hang out and go to dinner and we want to talk about spirits, that's what excites you, maybe it never turns off. It doesn't turn off for me. And I don't mean that in, that I'm wearing a veil of sorts, or this is a guise. I am an ambassador for something that I care about. And that's difficult to turn off. It's always going, and I'm always thinking about it.
Well, I always get that. Well, so this is the interesting thing. I wouldn't say it's a concern, but you're doing so much, and you're really exploring so many different aspects and facets to your career, and I'm sure intellectually and cerebrally as well. Are there those moments still where there's nothing, right? You can just sit with the dog and have those moments where you just, I don't want to shut the doors and just let me unwind.
Yeah, and I've always kind of been that way. I am, like most people in this industry and as bartenders, outspoken and loud and brash at times, and gregarious most importantly. And, we facilitate a lot of people's social lives, good times.
Right.
Counseling.
You're right, facilitate other people.
Other people. So giving all of that and coming from giving that time and time again every day, extending it to strangers and loved ones alike. All I would want to do after a 5-day week of 14-hour shifts all in a row is do my laundry, please, if I have energy, but lay in silence, just be.
Right.
Like you mentioned, I do have a dog that I care about greatly. If you know me at all, you definitely know Chutney, my pride and joy. But yeah, I do try to unwind, which is interesting because I've kind of been taught by the ongoing and high energy of this industry that we don't ever really turn off.
Right.
And so things like FOMO and TIFT are definitely always existing. I'm wondering what other people are doing. I'm wondering what is cool and trending. I'm wondering what I'm missing out on.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I have to chill.
You do it.
Yeah.
You make that song.
I have to. And it's not romantic. It's not like I'm, lounging around being fanned by palms. It's me in really gross sweatpants watching
So comfortable, though.
Netflix for 42 hours straight and forgetting what day it is. Yeah.
So it is a really nice balance. Frenetic, busy, social, gregarious, coupled with some nice fucking downtime with the dog and watching shit that's about rum.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. And taking myself out of, this rubric of a lifestyle as well. I like to go out and not be Elyse sometimes. My job is great in the idea that I can go into a bar and sit down and not know anybody, and then 5 minutes later have a friend, and we've connected over a product or we've connected over a random conversation. But sometimes I like to just go to a bar and not be anybody.
I agree.
And because
we get biased treatment if you think about
right?
it. We can never go in fresh when we know someone there.
Right.
Can't judge it properly.
No. And it's the opportunity that I have to be the person I've been catering to my whole life is I want to be wowed and wooed and loved on by the bartender.
Yeah.
And I want to see the way that other people extend hospitality. And damn, it feels good sometimes to be on the receiving end.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, it's a balance, right?
Absolutely.
It's strange. How do I coffee earlier with Sergio Mendoza from Don Fulano and Miriam, who has this new spirit coming out from Michoacan. I can't remember the name of it. I'll remember it. But she was talking about her sister's a masseuse. Okay. So what would a sister masseuse do? She would always be like, "Oh, you're so tense." And so she's like, I clench and I move away and I can't do it. But she herself is a very touchy-feely person. I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of the same way. I don't like people touching me, really. I'm always about other people. And so it is almost just as important to give as it is to take.
Oh, yeah.
It's a strange thing that I never realized, like, you need to take, too.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of, and if you're like me, you're from the South and hospitality has been just shoved into you since day one, since Jump Street, whether it's in the form of food or colloquialisms in language, vernacular or something, bless your heart, or come on in, y'all.
Warm and adorning.
Yeah, and then learning skill sets, learning to cook, for me especially, following my grandmother and my mother around and learning the action that is giving in hospitality. It kind of creates what can be a negative thing in your life and in your mind, which is that you should always be concerned about the well-being of others before yourself. You should, and if you're like my grandmother or my mother or even me now to this day, that if you make something for somebody to eat, you're never really satisfied until you see them eating it and smiling.
It's a very strange
so
thing.
You sit down without a plate, you're going to eat after everybody else is eating.
Right.
And getting that, it's such a strain when you break that action down.
Right.
My joy comes from your joy. In all sorts of ways. It's the same when I make a creative cocktail or somebody's asked me for something that's a little bit, bartender's choice or what have you. I'm always waiting on somebody to tell me or reaffirm for me. I want to carry the assurance in my heart that everyone around me is happy because I made them so. But yes, I need to give it back a little bit.
It's hard to take. I mean, it's really strange, but the power of asking for things, you know what I mean? That's something people don't realize is actually really important, saying, Elyse, I really need an hour of your time.
Yeah.
Right? Or I need you to not buy me a coffee. Thanks again for the coffee. Right? No, I'm just kidding. But
too bad, and you're going to drink it.
I will drink it, absolutely, through this gauntlet of interviews today on the Saturday during the conference. But can you ask for things? Are you able to ask for things that you need?
Yeah, you know what? And actually, it started coming around in a position of quantifying my worth. Money, right?
Oh, yeah.
As a woman in a job that doesn't really have a pay structure, right? We make a tip percentage, but we're paid some unreasonable amount here in Texas that goes straight into the ether. But and asking for opportunity in the same fashion, because with opportunity becomes experience, which gives me a skill set, which I then can quantify and make money upon. But it came as a push to be included in growth, right? As everybody around me was getting something that I didn't get and I didn't understand it. And I couldn't really talk myself out of the idea that I deserved it as well. And now it's has begun to trickle into the other spheres of my life. I ask more from the other people around me in my job place, in my workplace. I ask more of myself when it comes to doing things, but I definitely ask more of myself for self-love and self-care. I ask more of the people that I choose to spend time with, and I didn't have the ease and the comfort at first of saying, you do deserve something or you should ask for something. But now it doesn't seem too difficult. I realize it's kind of the ebb and flow, the way that it goes is you're given the take.
It's the other side of the coin, of course.
Yeah, you have to kind of encourage that out of people as well.
Absolutely. Be there for them, but also realize that maybe you would ask them for a favor in return. It's okay. Yeah. I thought I talked about this last night. I was like, I've asked so many people for favors to intro me to other people.
Right.
Like, tell me what you need now, because of course it doesn't have to be tit for tat, but I really do feel it's that balance. It's got to work.
Absolutely. And it's great practice, right?
Sure. Oh,
There's asking a stranger for something in a sales negotiation is not hard. You can structurally decide ahead of time what you would respond to. You have a list of concessions. You're ready to make this deal. But organically in conversation, or if it's something around personal items or what have you in a different sphere, it can be a little bit intimidating. Yeah. The closer it gets to your heart, the harder it is to ask, right? But it should be easier. The closer it is to your heart, the more you would want it and manifest it and try to encourage it to exist around you. So trying to figure that one out, it's kind of a little bit.
I don't know if like you, but I have this nice cold shell around my heart as a this loving, bleeding aquarium over this time. So it's hard to dig past that and chip through it. sometimes. But you're right. It's like, it's so strange, the duality that exists.
Sure.
You're so passionate, and could be any ambassador, but they're so passionate about their work, about the product, about the people. Yet, they won't they won't be passionate about other people. They won't let people be passionate about them. It's a very strange thing. We give again without taking anything in return. Going back, this is the funny thing: is no one's from Katy, right?
No one's from Katy. It's like Marfa.
No one wants to
born out
talk
there
about it, right? Like, but we went to high school. Went to rival high schools, which is cool. Now I'm,
Go Mustangs.
Almost 10 years. Yeah, fucking Mustangs. Go Tigers. Actually, I don't. It's insincere. I don't give a shit. Take back Katy Tigers, but it's an interesting place.
It is interesting.
Katy, and you have an older sister. Mm-hmm. You have a mom that's very successful, very, very driven, and like us both, I was raised by a single mom.
Yeah.
And it gives you a certain set of tools, doesn't it?
It sure does. Yeah. And being out there and touching on this, Katy is a beautiful place. Katy is also kind of the place that homogenous family structures go to create life.
Cinco Ranch, man.
Yeah, to hang out.
Yeah.
And so when you come from something that doesn't look like the plan, the societal normative of what a family is, right? You recognize it as an immediate obstacle, and however you determine you want to handle it. It was, when we're children, we're insecure about everybody's thoughts. Everyone's opinion is so high. So my mother, being a single mom from the beginning, was always over the top encouraging to two women that were her children, eventual women, that we were a tiny little girl gang and it was okay, and that we didn't look like everybody else, and that's okay as well. And there are life lessons that you can learn no matter who's teaching them, and you don't need necessarily the presence of the father figure to teach you the things. So my mother was very much so, just as yours, my mom and my dad, which was really cool, right?
It is. I mean,
it shapes you in a different way, I think. And I don't know if it's the maternal thing or the female thing. I don't know, being almost soft, and I mean that in a nice way, right? Like
warm. Is that another word for it, perhaps?
Yeah, she kind of raised us to be all accepting, empathy, just bleeding hearts, to understand other people, because we were asking people to understand us, and we didn't understand when they didn't. Right? So really encouraging. My mom was really encouraging in the idea that it's okay to be different and to look different and to eat different and to speak differently, and if all of those things happen around us in this big wide world, then it's normal. And outside of your tiny little bubble and your sphere that is Katy, Texas, that kind of sets this like Wizard of Oz principle in the way that things are,
right.
Maybe more Stepford Wives.
Can you even think about having lived your whole life in Katy?
No,
that's kind of a nightmare for me.
I drive through all of Houston to get to places like these cities, and I've made that drive so many times. I tell people all the time, I hate that drive. I hate the drive from Houston to San Antonio, because I know at every turn of the road just how far I am away. But that aside, I go through Katy first, and the growth out there is insane.
It is very insane.
But I know people, and you know people, that grew up to move away, to earn a degree, to move back, to plant themselves and their roots and their families in Katy, and to do it again. And kudos to them. That means that they enjoyed that place and that time and their upbringing and those people and that way of life so much that they want to replicate it forever.
Doesn't it feel like a bizarre world for you, though? Like that?
It's like
that process to me seems so foreign and so unintuitive.
Yes.
Right.
And it's strange because it's never been my mode or my method, right? Is once I do something and I familiarize myself with it, go away from it, find something new to tackle, find a new place to live. But I think that I have a lot of friends that I went to high school with and have gone off and, adopted that lifestyle for themselves in that space. And it's boggling. It is boggling to me, not in a sense that it means that they're not successful. They're not doing what they want to do. This is exactly what they want to do. It's just strange to realize how different my goals and my idea of life is from that place that kind of
absolutely
taught us things about ourselves.
When you think about success, I think that it's painted the narrative for the American dream, even though George Carlin says you have to be asleep to believe it. But let's just say the American dream is a positive thing. you get a degree, right? You have a family, you have 2.5 kids, you get a house, all this rubbish ultimately. But you did pursue the academic bit. You went to UTSA.
I did.
And studying arts there. Was that, I imagine being as intelligent as you are, that was obviously your idea, but did you feel any pressure, any motivation from your mom to also follow in that successful?
Absolutely. And not because she prescribed it to me, because I was being molded and built and vulnerable and influential or influenced at a time where my mom was crushing her career.
Yeah.
She crushed life, and I got to see it. I watched my mother come up in hospitality. She came from, management and Marriott hotels, and then she moved into the travel industry. And at a very young age, I watched her overcome divorce and defeat in that manner. Rebound from it. I watched her decide that she wanted more from her career and drive 3 hours 2 times a week to Baylor to earn her MBA when she realized that the ceiling had capped and she wanted to move up instead of laterally. And I got to watch her. And so I would see my mom come home wearing, what I would have at the time probably said something Murphy Brown would wear, but this powerhouse pantsuit.
Sure.
And
shoulder pads, right?
Yeah, and she taught me at a young age that you can be hip and fun and cool, and you can have a family, you can have friends, you can travel the world, and you can be successful in an industry and in a sphere of your life that maybe a lot of times we're told that we can't.
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel true pressure from my mother. I felt a very strong encouragement from her actions and watching her as an example.
Perhaps even, right?
Absolutely. And we talk about it now where I say, I remember this milestone in your career, you coming home and talking about it. And she's like, I'm so happy that you remember these things.
Yeah.
And, because she's shifted in her career and her life very greatly. And I think that it's important to remind people of the person that really were happy about her, or aspects of their career that were very powerful. And when I do remind my mom that those little bits of time stand out in my mind still as encouragement to continue going in the path that I'm on.
I'm sure she feels immensely proud, right?
She's like, wow, geez, thanks. I almost forgot about that. But my sister's a powerhouse too. And my grandmother was a powerhouse. My other grandmother was a powerhouse. And it's been really easy, I'd say, and I would never take it for granted, but I'd say maybe I'm spoiled and lucky in the sense that I have had nothing but badass women show me the way.
Yeah.
In different ways,
Well, no, it's nice. It gives you some sense of completeness, right?
Absolutely.
Different schools of thought that all can converge.
Absolutely.
It's an amazing thing. Different generations, too, seemingly.
Yeah. And so studying arts and having encouragement to go off and to go to school and enter academia was always something that I wanted to do. It wasn't that I needed the societal imperative of the degree that would get me the job, that would land me the husband, that would allow me to have the kids, that would get me a house that was bigger, and then I would be content. None of that tangible those things ever stuck out in my mind as a keynote of success for me. That was never the way that it looked for me. For me, it was, am I going to be happy? Is putting my energy into this field of study going to make me happy?
Right.
What is it doing for me?
Can we talk about the concept of happiness then?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's an interesting thing. I read this study. When I went through my first divorce, I understood this study more than I ever have in my life. And that is, people say, I want to be happy. Admirable pursuit, of course. However, life is a mean average when you're done. Right? So, at the end of the day, you want to have more happy days than sad days.
Absolutely.
So, that balance that strikes between depressive times and uplifting times, do you embrace both equally?
Maybe not equally. There's probably an imbalance there because, as I've mentioned, and we've probably built by now, I'm incredibly critical over myself in ways that are great, but also detrimental if I allow them to spin out, right? So I just recently was in an Uber talking to my Uber driver about Happy New Year, right? Oh, last year was terrible. We had, it's been a whirlwind of a ride.
Right.
2016 was crazy as well. And I moved home to Houston in 2015. And through that time, and I said this out loud for the first time, was that they were hard years and I nearly had enough hiccups to match or eclipse the good times. And that came out of my face, and I almost choked on it because it wasn't true. You know, I felt that way, and I felt that, and maybe it was that I was connecting to this person who was sharing something very candid about themselves and their hardships. But, you know, I got out of that car, and I was standing at the curbside at one of my favorite bars about to meet some friends of mine, and that is absolutely untrue. You know, and what is happiness to me, and what does that mean? And am I aware that I'm happy when it's happening?
Right.
Or am I only aware that I've been happy because I feel so bad at the current time, right?
The grass is greener or darker, I guess.
Yeah, it's the juxtaposition.
Contrast.
Are we ever really present in the moment to understand how we're feeling right now?
Right.
So when I'm feeling recently, and hopefully it's a practice that I keep up with because I get to share it with maybe you and whoever's listening, but in space and time, no one ever. I jam out in the car.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's the best.
I sing and dance to a point where it nearly like I feel myself smiling, and I'm happy for, like, I force this thing. I get my energy up. I'm wiggling. I'm happy. I'm moving around, and
right.
and it's like a forced action that is so simple and silly and ridiculous because it's probably, you know, Taylor Swift or Drake on the end that I'm just rapping my ass off to.
Pick your poison. It doesn't matter, right?
Oh, and they're all poisonous in my book. I would be so mortified if someone got a hold of my Spotify. Like, oh.
This is a worthy pursuit, I think, for the public, just to tell you, Elyse, to find out what you've got hiding in that musical closet.
You don't want to know.
Of yours. I probably
It's all over the place.
But in a way, I kind of do.
It's good. I mean,
sure, it's
got
good.
something for everybody. It's like a little mystery box.
Yeah.
But yeah, so being aware of happiness and sadness and good and bad music and good bad experiences, it's important, but I don't think that it's a balance for me necessarily, and maybe anybody. And I think that to say that it is a lie, and to say that anything is never.
To me, you know, it's weird. It's like everybody's, I want to be happy. It's like, cool.
What does that mean?
A very worthy, right. I don't know. It's like saying you're busy. I think it's rubbish terminology. I think it doesn't really have a meaning.
Yeah.
I just want to be content. Right, I want to feel harmonious with the world around me.
Right.
Whether it gives me positive energy or negative energy, I will accept both and then ultimately deal with it in a positive or very mild-mannered way.
Sure, and we've personally, as friends, spoken about what that means. Right, is experiencing things in the moment and letting energies affect us. Excuse me, but. Being content with the world around us.
Yes.
Mike, you and I look at the world a little bit differently. And it's isolating, and we've shared that with each other before, but I don't know that I ever really feel one with the world. Sometimes I have this strange thought that, like, maybe this is the Matrix and nobody is really real, and it's a manifestation of something. Sure. I was in Civitavecchia, which is this tiny little port town in Italy, and I'm standing at a coffee shop, and we're determining where we want to go for the day, and I've got my sister and my mother in tow, and we're on a tiny little blip of place in the world. And a boy I went to high school with rides by on a bike.
Wow.
And who put us there in the same moment? Is it Kismet? Is it serendipitous? Is it a projection of my mind? That's it.
Yeah.
It's the Matrix.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where sometimes things happen that are so far out that I don't really know what reality and existence is, but to be one with it sounds tight. I would love to do that.
But it's, I mean, at least it's enjoyable while we're here if we make it that way.
Yeah, and I think that me being okay with the way the world is around me and existing around me is to going back to expectations, to strip myself of the expectations that would keep me from being content. Yeah. I used to, like most women, have an event come up where I'm super excited to wear the outfit for the thing, right?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I would create the idea of what I wanted to wear, all the way down to the shoes. The shoes are the most important thing for me. Love good shoes. But what I would do is create the idea of a pair of shoes that I wasn't quite sure if I'd seen.
Right.
Maybe it was like a hodgepodge of 3 pairs of shoes that I'd liked over time, and they were now this tangible item that I convinced myself existed.
Yeah.
That I had to find for this outfit, or it wasn't going to be okay.
So we're actually just talking about shoes. I'm just curious if it expands beyond that.
Doesn't it? Probably. So creating this idea where I would stress myself out, like, I can't find these shoes. They don't exist because I made myself think they did. And maybe I should invent them if they don't exist. If I like
talking
them
about
so
innovation
much.
now, right?
Right. So figuring out, and what a silly analogy, but so real. And I'm so sure everybody here is like,
totally.
I do that. I made that up And I was disappointed so greatly in myself and the things around me when it didn't come true.
What do you think Hollywood romance is?
God, it looks
the
great.
Same shit, man. It's like I imagine it, and maybe you're not even conscious of the fact that Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks have built some kind of set of pillars of philosophy about love and the way you feel about it, right? Maybe you don't even know that, but when you find love and it doesn't meet what you thought.
Oh, the expectation for love and romance in my life is something that has been and has been nearly crippling. I want things for myself. I want things for other people, and then you kind of realize through relationships and time, maybe other people don't really want that for you, or they don't see that as making you happy, or
it's so tough,
they don't want to make you happy, or they don't know how to make you happy because you don't know what makes you happy. It's a cyclical quandary, right?
I'm throwing my hands up here, but yes.
Yeah, and that's been really interesting, is learning that in order to love somebody else, I have to love myself because I've got to teach them how to love me right.
Right.
And if I don't set the idea for them, or I say, hey, we're having our first tiff, I don't really think that that's the way that I like to communicate. Let me be honest and out loud. I want to have a very calm conversation. I don't want to ever say words to you that I would regret.
Right.
I'm never going to call you a bad name. And I highly and absolutely expect the same respect from you.
But you know how much self-introspection and understanding of the way that you approach your life and the way you feel about yourself, you know how much curation that takes to be able to even be that poised in a argument.
Yeah, it takes curation, but it also takes really, really tumultuous and negative relationships to teach you the way that you want to treat people and the way that you expect to be treated.
That's a good point.
And it was me in an all-out screaming battle with somebody where I had a click in my mind that said, I wouldn't do this to somebody I hate.
Yeah.
And I think I love this person. Why would I ever treat this person that way?
Doesn't make sense. It's cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, and back in college days, I had 3 roommates, and I listened through the wall of my bedroom door one night at a good friend of mine who is a roommate say some of the most heinous and outrageous things that I've ever heard to her boyfriend. And I thought, wow, he's really getting it. And then the next day when they were fine, I said, how did they wake up from that and say, oh, let's pretend like it didn't happen? My mom told me really early on when she found us writing notes in high school and junior high, be very careful about the things that you write. Yes, you can get in trouble with the content of a silly and exchangeable note, but what you put into words, verbally and written, libel and slander essentially,
exactly,
you cannot take back. So if you say something to somebody that you felt in a heated moment where your feelings were completely out of your control, you can't take that back, and they're going to remember you. Imagine you making somebody happy and them looking at you in love, and then no matter how high that gets, they're going to recall the time that you said that terrible thing. And it's going to conflict. It's going the opposite way of the grain, right? Yeah. There's all sorts of things in my mind have come to...
Even with people with bad memories, remember those.
Oh my gosh.
How do they remember that in the file system in the brain?
Because you're firing on all synapses when you're affected like that, right? Like, you're angry, you're sad, you're heartbroken, and that is a very powerful recollection tool, right? Like, that's total recall is emotion, right? And I mean, like our olfactory sense of the magic that it is. I smell some things and I'm reminded of conflict or a fight or a really great love time, or
it's incredible.
It
is. It's powerful. It's interesting. I always want to paint a narrative for these lives. So you've lived a very rich life thus far. You haven't even hit your 30s yet. So that's going to be really exciting. We'll talk about what those future chapters may look like. But I think one of the pillars, one of the milestones, at least as I see it, is your relationship with Speed Rack.
Oh, love it.
In terms of, again, back to the single mother thing. I got a brother, my mom, me. So we grew up pretty much alone, right? My parents got married in 88, so it's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to find something, not even intentionally, but subconsciously somehow wanting to belong to a larger familial unit. Did Speed Rack provide some of that for you? Speed
Rack has provided a great amount of that. The chances of me choking up and crying when I talk about Speed Rack are very high.
This would actually be the second time, because it has that kind of bond between the people that involved. It's the people involved, but it's also a version of myself. Yeah. This competition that I realized was, I guess in the world of competition, if you could consider it, it's like a game of golf. Yeah. If you don't know golf, that's okay. Essentially what I'm trying to say is it's a competition to the eye, right? It's presumably me going head to head with another woman
to battle her and take her down and overcome her. However, you're not working in the same wheelhouse. You don't have the same processes. You are trying to get to the same goal on whatever weird way you're going to get there is completely your own. So you're playing against yourself. You're not, there is showmanship and sportsmanship and camaraderie. I will hug the person next to me, but this is not about me beating that person.
Right.
This is about me beating beating myself.
Yeah.
And it's empowering, right? And it's also gratifying, when you do win and you do get incredibly far, it's a reminder of the work that you've put in. I trained my ass off, Mike. I applied the life of the athlete that I was as a younger person to this thing that I didn't know was something you could hone and really break down and create a process with. And I did. I became the best bartender that I ever was, or ever will be.
Sure.
Meticulous, organized, quick, graceful, careful, predicting my movements before they've done them, knowing exactly how much space I'm encompassing. I was the best version of myself, and it very much so is about what physically that activity asked of me.
Yeah.
But emotionally and mentally, I've grown as a person from that organization. It showed me camaraderie. It showed me a seat. It showed me competition and love at the same time. It's shown me the way that a community can get behind a movement. And coming from a family of women where we talk about breast cancer and we all, save the boobs, save the woman.
Right.
This isn't about... Speed Rack is a great way to talk about and make light of and encourage a fun air around something very important. But my grandmother had breast cancer, and my mother had scannings for it, and my sister and I are always on the,
alert.
Yeah. It's something that is part of a woman's daily routine. We're encouraged by our doctors and our OBGYNs and our caretakers to manually and give ourselves these checkovers. It's a weird thing to have an activity that you're supposed to be doing to check to make sure that you're not in trouble, right?
Yeah.
When I reach behind my head in the shower, the last thing I think I want to do is examine myself for a lump.
Same thing with my testicles, right?
Right.
It's the same,
and
I'll do it tomorrow.
And it's scary when you think that oh my gosh, is this is my lymph node flaring, or what's happening?
Right.
Is this just whatever? So Speed Rack was amazing to me because as a woman, you are constantly kind of reminded of this inevitable and looming could be possibility in your life. But cancer is cancer. Cancer affects everybody. Whether you are somebody that actually has that sickness or you are somebody that is going through grieving and recovery with somebody around you that's doing it. It is completely consuming. And to be involved in something that constantly brings attention to not the bad side of it is awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what Speed Rack is. It's an opportunity to take seriously something that is incredibly challenging and detrimental to a lot of lives, but to put it into a party is genius.
It's to celebrate life, really.
It's to celebrate life. It's to celebrate hard work. It's to celebrate women on a very large platform, all the way to the to the micros. But yeah, Speed Rack is super important to me. It's given me some of the best friendships I could have ever asked for. It's taught me so much about myself, and it makes me love people blindly. It changed my compassion. Speed Rack Chicago is absolute waterworks for me. We were all meeting back up, all 16 of us from...
The band was back together?
We got the band back together for the most part. A few were missed, but for the most part, we successfully reconvened in the middle at the place, the home spot for Moni, who won nationals last year. So it was great on all sorts of levels. We were back together, but I was seeing women's faces competing on that stage that I'd maybe never heard of. And Speed Rack is kind of this, creates a badasses, right? Sure. There are names, Lacey Hawkins,
Oh, yeah.
There's always that veteran staple that's in the competition, but more so than ever this year, we are seeing so many women that we're meeting for the first time.
Incredible.
And it is so wild how powerful they are.
Yeah.
So badass. So I'm watching these women, and I'm just overcome with the idea that they work just as hard as I worked, and they're going through the run of the emotions that I know. And also, I love them.
Yeah.
And they don't know it yet, but we're going to be friends. And it's because they're doing this thing that I respect tremendously, and they're doing it with a smile, and they're doing it with ease, and they're doing it with grace. And it's so easy to say, and I say it to competitors a lot, is You do this every day that you go to work. This is nothing new. Don't freak out. In fact, you do this so well that outside of this competition, people give you money for it.
Yeah.
This is a Saturday night. The difference is you have to touch a buzzer and look into a crowd.
Yeah.
Who cares? But it's incredibly empowering, and it's incredibly, gratifying to have found that organization, to allow that organization to kind of open my opportunities.
Yeah.
It kind of opened the door for a lot of things. It connected me to a lot of really beautiful people, and it showed me a portion of this industry and this community and this big family that exists around us that I hadn't had an opportunity to see before.
There's some people I've talked to that, in a way, they come with these glowing recommendations, like, oh, Mike, you got to talk to this person or that person. You've really impacted people's lives, it feels like. I think these sentiments about you are so warm and resounding that, do you ever think about the fact that you've really impacted other people's lives too?
No, but thank you for saying so, and that'll make me cry too. No, it feeds back into the blind giving of hospitality, right? We're never really thinking about it's ingrained in me to make others happy.
Yeah. And
it's a blessing that people want to be happy in my company. And if that's the thing that does it, then hell yeah, But at the same time, I'm sure there's a lot of people whose eyes I make cross who can't stand to share the room with me.
Sure.
But I guess I'm doing an okay job if I don't know them. They haven't announced themselves.
It's always better that way.
No, I hope that feeling and that sensation and that idea is reciprocated. I hope that the people that feel that way about me know that they impact my life just as greatly, and that's why we can end up in the same room time and time again.
But you can let it in. This is the thing I have a real struggle with, is letting the gratitude of others in.
Yeah. And you know what is also really messed up is that I take for granted that a lot. When I start to feel lonely, which happens when traveling, it happens when I get back to the hotel room after I've been bombarded by company all night and good times and high energy, and I have a moment to kind of sit there and think, how lasting is everything? How much does it give back to me? What's my ROI on this thing? And it's we kind of take it for granted. I take that for granted, thinking about what maybe I do for others or the joy that I can possibly give to other people. I don't ever think about it.
Sometimes we're just too busy doing. There was this funny thing that I was listening to on the radio years ago. It was kind of profound because I love my dog. We both love our dogs very much. They're soulmates. Right? She is my soulmate. She can't even speak my language, but
doesn't matter. You just can feel it,
I know. But this person, he was a psychiatrist, and he was talking about the human condition, as we all are, and he was saying, I was in the park the other day, and I was watching these dogs. They were fumbling over these balls, these frisbees. They were just in the moment so much. And he said, it made me realize that many of us are not human beings. We're human doing. And it's something I always go back and think about, because you try to achieve so many things, and you're ambitious. You've got things to prove to yourself, and sometimes it's the antithesis of just being and accepting that love and accepting that gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
It's a strange thing.
And I like that story, because when I take Chutney to the dog park, I have had moments where I think I've never made fast friends in this way.
Yeah.
I've never been able to freely share things with people like a ball or a toy. And I'm never running that fast at the idea of happiness. And that is what she does with these other dogs she's now best friends with. And it's like, I want to be that. I want to do that. And probably amazing. On some level I do. But yeah, and that's such a fun, I love the idea of the human condition when you said that it's a condition that applies to being, and it's,
absolutely.
The human condition is malleable and versatile and ever-flowing and changing, and it's in constant flux. And I never really know. Once I get my finger on what my human condition is, it's changing. So that's just such a funny term to me.
I love it.
I
really do. I think about that warm moment, when the dogs have this look in their eye.
She gets so happy about anything. I take her to the crosswalk. On our walk, we go to this four-way stop, and every car that slows down, she thinks it's for her. anyone, that she'll stand on the corner and just stare out as though she's won a pageant. Everyone is gathering here. We are here for you. That gentleman has some frankincense and myrrh. Chutney, we are so happy that you are here with us. But yeah, I want that, that naive freedom, that, endless happiness. Yeah, my dog teaches me a lot.
Mine too. Obviously, this latest chapter is heavily imbibed with whiskey.
Yes.
The Macallan, or Raise the Macallan event just occurred kind of through the nation. You were in town in Austin for that. It was a brilliant experience, elevating the brand, luxury, and all that, right? Like, everybody knows the Macallan, right? It's a delicious Scotch. We fucking love it. So, but for you, you've got this massive portfolio of stuff. I mean, you have Cuddy Sark as well, right?
Yeah.
And Famous Grouse, too, yeah?
Famous Grouse.
So, let's say you're going home and it's been a dark month.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're a little introspective, feeling creative. Which of those bottles do you think is most suitable for the brooding, pensive artist?
Oh, my
goodness. If not all of them mixed together.
Yeah, no, let's take them all and blend our own.
Suicide, Tiger's Blood.
Do a Macallan suicide. Bob Delgarno would probably fly to America just to punch me in the face. He's a master at what he does, and he creates beautiful expressions for us. But I think for me as a creative, the Edition series is just a call to my heart. It is a creative collaboration between Bob Delgarno and an individual whose life is led by passion outside of spirits, right? So we looked at the Roca brothers for edition number 2, but this most recent edition with Roja Dove is a collaboration between a perfume master and maker and a whiskey maker. And for two men whose noses and palates lead their lives in completely different spheres to come together and create something. And the idea of sitting down with a stranger or somebody that has a tangent, or maybe like a tertiary connection with you and passion to create something out of a brand new lens that only you two have.
It's kind of amazing.
Is amazing. And also it's delicious. Yeah. It's an amazing expression. I really love the Edition series. When we talk about the Macallan, and like you mentioned, we associate luxury. And it's actually one of my favorite, gifts to give or encourage others to buy because it's so accessible price point wise. My job is easy in that sense almost. It's also very difficult in that sense that the Macallan is known. People know the Macallan.
Yeah. They have their preconceived notions about it.
Exactly. So that's where I come in. Is you've known it, you've seen it, it's been around you. It's part of what we see when we go into a bar. I've had friends send me pictures of back bars and say, every time I see this bottle, I think of you now. That's great. Yeah. That is essentially what a brand ambassador is to do, is align themselves with a product. But what I am interested in doing, just as Bob Delgarno and Roja Dove have done, is change the landscape of the conversation regarding single malt whiskey. I had the privilege of working with House Spirits Distillery before I came on with Macallan and Edrington.
Yeah, huge piece of your career, mind you. I've had to think, what are the things that are so impactful?
Yeah, full year with one of the most amazing teams in the game, under the tutelage of some of the best ambassadors and education advocates in the game, and it sparked something in me that I cared about whiskey, and I wanted to keep talking about it. And if I could find a gig that allowed me to wake up every day and continue this conversation that I'm passionate about, then I'm nailing it. And having that foundation was really great, but moving into the Macallan was interesting. Going from a growth brand, Westward is phenomenal, but it's new. It's new. It's an opportunity to say, try this thing that you've never had or seen. Coming up against something that, eclipses whatever opinion I have about it.
Yes, right.
But if I can make somebody think or approach that spirit differently, for a minute there, I was really, really on the board of put Macallan in cocktails. We've moved into this culinary sect where we care so greatly about quality and content on our plates and in our stomachs and, in our bodies. Yeah. Why doesn't that transition always to cocktails? And that's essentially the underlying foundation or idea of the cocktail movement is, why aren't we doing that with the best quality ingredients that we have in the best manner possible? So that was a little bit crazy to encounter people that wanted to just backhand me for mixing Macallan. And, right. But it goes back to the bartender in me. There's always the bartender that you go out for a beer and a shot after work, and they really, really want to tear down that guest that wanted to put a beautiful expression of Del Mackay into a margarita.
Right.
I didn't wake up today to come to work to tell you how to live your life. I came to work to give you exactly what you want.
It's not about us.
There's this backwards trend that we've had and we've kind of been shaped and molded by is the opinion of the bartender, the opinion of the person that's actually pouring whatever concoction it is that makes your heart happiest into a glass and asking you for money for it. There's almost a judgment or an acceptance that we're expecting from those people. And we shouldn't. I was a bartender for a very, very long time. And what is in the glass does not matter. It's the hospitality and the connection that you were there to create. But if you want to put Coke with Macallan, I'm going to not only do it for you, I'm going to slow clap next to you while you drink the whole thing. Because it's not about drinking my brand. And I tell that to bars when I go in and do, staff trainings. Because most of the time what I've come to find is I start to talk about Macallan and I have to step back and start talking about, well, what is single malt Scotch? Are we familiar with distillation? How can I help you to create an opinion for yourself about a product that is informed?
You're empowering the consumers instead of prescribing to them.
And the bar individuals as well. Is if you don't want to tell somebody you don't want to drink that's crap, you better be able to tell me exactly why you feel that way.
Right.
I want to know something beyond your perception of a brand or what you think about it. I want you to be the most informed about our production methods, about the philosophy that we make our whiskey with, about distillation as a process. In that way, when we go and have a kind exchange of ideas, you're going to be prepared to not only talk about why you dislike things, but you're going to be empowered to discover and investigate the things that you maybe don't know that you love.
I think it's one of the most important things.
Yeah.
It's okay to dislike stuff, of course. But if you don't know why, shame on you.
Well, and that's our whole lives, right? Like, you never stop learning. I never ever want to feel as though I'm not in a position to continue absorbing information and learning. And this job gives me that opportunity, but gives me an opportunity to share it with other people too.
Yeah.
Is I can't imagine being so content in the information I have that I don't open a book again tomorrow, or I don't critically think about something that I heard that sounded like fact but was opinion. And it's something that is part of me as a being, no matter what the subject or the content is. I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to continue moving and filling space with my ideas. And if I can do that for other people, I do. And so
then that's perfectly frames these last two questions. Okay. So so many amazing people in town.
Yes.
Oh man, there's abundance of everything: tacos, coffee, booze, whatever your pleasure is. Talking about this, expanding people's minds, you to continue learning, you keep becoming philosophical, all of these different things you let in, right?
Yes.
You are open to it all. And that's an amazing way to be. You've worked behind the bar. You've been in academia. Where do you go after the brand? Do you have an ultimate goal? Do you have an ultimate just signpost out there? Something that you're striving for, maybe to open a bar, maybe to create your own brand?
When I was bartending, and I thought that the next step for me was to open a bar, and I kind of started fleshing that idea out and critically examining where I was going and what spaces made me happy and what was the undertone of the bar that I loved best and how can I create that,
right?
But how is it organic? And so thinking about the spaces and that idea was really, really powerful for me because it made me constantly, almost for a while there, the idea of opening a bar and creating somebody's safe space or third space or favorite dive was so powerful that it made me become a better bartender to somehow get that in the future. Right. In order to make people happy, I have to figure out what that looks like. And so there was growth in that blind goal, that pipe dream, if you will.
Sure.
And then I started talking to my good friend Bobby, who essentially, he's given me an abundance of opportunities through his bar programs. And he's also just a really great pillar in my community in Houston. Very opinionated, very, very open with the way that he feels and the information that he has. He's always willing to give you information. And one of the best bits of information that he gave me was not everybody should be a bar owner.
Right, sure.
And there are things that force you to put roots where you maybe didn't think you needed to, or you discover that you don't have the freedom that you did, or, opening a bar is maybe what is great for some people. But for me, I don't think that that's what would make me successful. I have to keep moving,
Right.
Traveling is so important to me. I mentioned earlier my mother was working for Continental, but she instilled in us in a young age that we were bigger than the space where we are right now. We can always move somewhere new and start a new leaf, but we are global citizens and we're part of a huge network and community, and we have brothers around the world and sisters around the world, and we don't know them and they speak different languages, but we're part of something bigger, and that always makes me feel uneasy when I start to feel as though I'm stuck,
right,
or I'm sticking, or I'm putting something down that's a little bit more permanent. Not that I don't, not that I'm just a rambler, but owning a bar is not for me because it would keep me in one space.
I see.
With brand and ambassador programs and, even moving into the desk jockey sort of situation that is probably in my future, I don't really know what that position or that action is that I'm going to move into, Mike.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that having an opportunity to creatively think about activating others has helped me find new tools, new ideas of training people, education, essentially. So it's far off and it's black and white and gray and cloudy, but it's something bigger than what I'm doing now, and it's bigger than a lateral movement. And I think that it has to do more with marketing and production, probably.
The clouds will separate at some point, right? And you'll be like, the light will come in.
Yeah.
And you'll feel inspired, and you'll know exactly what that next move is.
Yeah.
When I think about the things that you're interested in so wide, the immense world around us, I ask every guest this question, and it's our final question of the day before we go off and to do more wonderful things in San Antonio during this cocktail conference 2018. See, I've tried to, maybe I'll do radio.
Yeah, no, you almost kicked into that, and I was like, I got hyped. I was like, oh my God, we're about to turn this up.
We're going to do this. No, but you're sipping your favorite spirit. Doesn't matter what it is. That's not really the point. And you're at your favorite or one of your favorite places to drink in the world, wherever that may be. And you can have a dram or two in conversation with anybody, living or deceased. Who would that be for you?
Wow. I would probably want to have a drink with one of my first heroes, and I don't even know that she drinks. But I'd ask her kindly to enjoy something with me. Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Flojo.
Yeah, I don't know if she drinks either.
I mean, I don't know if her renal system is probably the most pristine in the world because she is an immaculate human. But
right.
No, she was one of my first heroes. She overcame boundaries and obstacles that I didn't really understand. Race conversation, biology conversation. This successful black female athlete. And I ran track, and I don't know if you know this, but I ran very fast, and I was very good.
I was very good at what I did, yeah.
And it's a running, right? When people are like, you're in track, you can run fast. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's a skill,
it is what
right?
it is.
It's like, important.
People are good at golf.
Yeah,
right?
laugh all you want, but if a bear comes, who's in trouble, But, lettering and succeeding in that field was interesting to me because you don't have a lot of people that you're like, wow, I really love that person. I want to, do that thing as well as they do. But Jackie Joyner-Kersee, she ran fast, and she was great at what she did, but she was so much more than that.
Yeah.
She was a pillar of empowerment for several different people, whether you're a man or a female, whether you're black, white, or any other person of color, or, shade. And it was amazing to see one person who was struggling with their own obstacles and, rings of fire, encourage so many different people, so many different spheres and so many walks of life, doing something that didn't require a massive skill set.
Right. Just a natural talent in a way.
But how grateful am I to have two great legs that run fast, Yeah. And it's a funny thing. When I go to work out, I always think I'm really lucky to have to be able-bodied.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I have yet in my life, other than a few hiccups with soccer and an ACL, and then roller derby and an ACL. I'm pretty okay. My parts are all moving and working and flowing and so I would probably ask Jackie Joyner-Kersee to have a drink with me.
First I've heard that. I think it's brilliant, and it's very symbolic.
We would probably I would ask her to have a few drinks with me, and then I would ask her to race me from stop sign to stop sign, just to see if I still got it.
God, I hope you guys don't fall and tumble. I've done that.
No way.
I've tried to race after drinking scotch before. It's always a tough thing.
I can do all things through single malt who strengthens me.
It's amazing. At least we finally made it happen. It's taken 2 years, but
We made it happen, Mike.
it's been a lovely chat as always, and Godspeed on the next endeavor.
Thank you.
Racer like speed, I suppose, as well with those two talented legs of yours, as you said. So, thanks so much for taking the time out.
Thank you for having me.
Talk soon, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, there we have it, the lovely Elyse Blechman of the Macallan. It's good to hear about her roots in San Antonio and Houston, how she was deeply impacted by Speed Rack now that these finals and semifinals are just happening around us. It's good to know that a strong woman is such a presence in the Scotch world. Whiskey is sometimes a very male-dominated field, and with someone as smart, ambitious, and insightful as Elyse at the forefront of the Macallan conversation, this is beautiful. This is a great thing and a great way to shift forward the taste in Scotch. So, Elyse, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting about your life with me. It's been an exciting one, and even though you're not yet 30, there is so much to be proud of, and you have so much left to achieve. So thanks, everybody, for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how you're thinking, man, I am buying too many bottles of Scotch lately. That PX finish just grabs me by the cojones. Or if you're thinking, I really am enjoying salads of all types these days, please keep dancing.